Welcome to this special event. And today I have my special friend, Damilola from Nigeria. He has recently completed his PfMP and he happily agreed to come here and share his knowledge. So, welcome, Dami. How are you today?
Thank you, Dharam. I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing
Hello,
fantastic.
everyone.
Fantastic. So, guys, welcome. I see many people are coming back again, and I'm really excited to see some of the familiar faces and some of the new faces, which always good to see. So, topic today, very interesting topic, from strategy to value, and we're talking about real world portfolio leadership lessons from a PFMP. So, Demi is a PFMP. He did PFMP recently in January. And just to introduce myself, if you don't know me, I have been training PGMP, PFMP, PMOCP, RNP, PM, and many other. So I have been mentoring globally to support project managers, program and portfolio managers to achieve their certificates. And the same spirit, Dami has been following me for some time and then decided to join my PFMP program, personal program. And he completed his PFMP. And that's one reason I like to have my students here to come and share back. You learn something from me, and let's share a little bit back to the community. One other thing I'll highlight recently, I completed my two milestones, 602 PGMPs and 201 PFMPs. So it's a big achievement. Every PGMP, PFMP is a big achievement for me and helping me to reach my numbers. Of course, you guys are helping me. So thank you for your contribution. And I can see a couple of people on the list as well. They also have helped me to achieve PFMP and PGMP. So thank you, everyone who has assisted. And I'd like to continue to give back in this way to keep my students or my mentees around the world, to give them some learning and help them to do the job better. With the Demi, as you can see, Demi is coming from Nigeria. He's working as a general manager.
Yes, General Manager, Operations and Strategy for Alpha Energy and Oilfield Limited. But of course, I would say in the past year or so, I have more or less been playing the role of a portfolio manager for the Alpha Holdings Limited, which is a group of, I think, 17 companies now. I would say my PFMP journey is one that I don't think it's typical because I started the journey about 5-6 years ago. Yeah, I found out about the certificate and I knew it was exactly what I needed. At the time, I was transitioning into a role that was very strategy focused. So I knew I needed something to boost my knowledge. So I came across the PFMP. I started the process. I passed the panel review, but then I think that was when we had COVID. So everything was locked down. I already even had my exam date, so I had to cancel. And of course, COVID, then we got back to work, life happened. I think I chatted you up, Dharam, a few times, and I told you I was still considering picking it up again. But yes, as soon as I started the process again, it seemed seamless. I think because I had some knowledge before, but then I think because I had been practicing in somewhat of a portfolio manager role, I was able to, I'll say the lessons learned during my journey were easier to adopt, I would say. And then the exam, I'll say one thing that really helped me for the exam was mock exams. I think if I wasn't prepared for the way the exams will be shaped, of course, and Dharam, I must say, thanks for clarifying that nobody should expect you to have the questions. But then I would say from the mock exams, similar questions in the main exam. But then it was easier for me to do the exam. I took the entire 4 hours because I had to go through my questions over and over again. But I was comfortable because I feel I was well prepared. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you for opting me your mentor. It's always privileged to be part of the journey and seeing the successful result. Obviously, as a mentor, I'm happy that you have completed your PfMP, and soon I will see you in my PMO program. Hopefully, I'm able to make your team more productive and more efficient in doing whatever they're doing.
Oh, I was going to say, I see you have already crossed the 200 threshold in PfMP. You're 201 now, so congrats.
Guys, I have shared some links on the chat if you want to keep an eye on that about the exam simulator and some videos, previous videos, which can help you about learning the process, and also link to the YouTube channels. I do have 2 YouTube channels. You will see this video as well, and a number of past recordings, more than 300, 400 recordings are there. So please join, subscribe, and keep watching. Learn from these extraordinary people coming and talking, sharing the experience. Learn from them. And this is actually helping people to learn from my guests and to improve their professional life a little bit. Even 1% of the listening you can get from the topic or from the guest, you may be able to change something in the way you're doing things. Thank you for joining. And I'm here to bring more and more guests. All right. So this is our today's agenda. I do have 8 questions, and I do have a number of audience questions, which I already have received. But you feel free to add your questions on the question pad, and as and when right time comes, I will ask or I will read in case it's for me or it's for Demi. Okay. Yep. So that's the question pad and chat. I can see people, you are using the chat already. Great. Keep the momentum going. And if you are preparing for PGMP, PfMP, like to share that information on the chat. If you need my guidance, please let me know. So later on, I'm going to share, and this time I've changed a little bit. I'm going to share a screen where you will see the PDF code. You have to pay attention to that. If you miss that slide, you will not able to get the PDF code. If the people who are watching the recording, you have to go through full presentation. So before we get started, let me have a quick poll question, very straightforward. Here we have the poll question. What is the current role focus? Whether you're project manager, program manager, PMO, portfolio leader, executive, strategic role, or if you think you've reached PfMP, why not? But I'd like to see as many, or actually all of you, responding to this question should be everybody's question. The first question is, how do portfolio leaders translate organization strategy into value-driven investment decisions?
So for me, I think strategy is something that becomes real when approvals are being affected. A lot of times when it's not written, people can change what you actually would like to fund. But then also, if everything gets funded, you can't really prioritize anything. So from a portfolio management perspective, I would say, and this is from my own, I would say, this is how I create, I would say, a decision filter and how I turn strategy into that decision filter. I work with 3 things mostly. First, what strategic objective does this support? If someone brings a new initiative to me, I try to find out from our existing defined strategy themes, try to find out not even how it aligns. I try to find out which specific objective it supports. Then secondly, of course, look at the value. What value are you expecting and when do you expect to get that value? And then also you're looking at, is it cash that you're looking to get now? Are you looking at stability over time? Are you looking to reduce risk? Is this about compliance? Is it client retention? What is the actual value? And then thirdly, capacity. This is where a lot of people get it wrong. And I think the PfMP journey, studying for the exam also helps to prepare me for this. A lot of people do not look inward when they are strategizing. They don't consider capacity. you need to consider the things you need to make it real. The resources, capacity is always a constraint. You need to prioritize. There are trade-offs that will happen. And just to round up my response, I could give an example or a practical example. We had bids that we were working on one time, and one of them was for a call-off contract, was estimated to bring about $10 million a year. But it was uncertain because it's a call-off contract, of course, you're uncertain whether you get the opportunity to negotiate. And we had I think it was about 7-year period for the contract. So you might be stuck with $10 million over a period or a yearly over a period of 7 to maybe even 10 years. But then on the other hand, we had another bid for a lump sum contract for $50 million. Big number, quick win. Very visible, it was very obvious. But then if you consider things from a portfolio perspective and you have had to think about the value you intend to get right now, about the risk profile you are taking on, then you realize you have to look way deeper. The trade-off we had to make at this point was to look at what we currently wanted to achieve and what we had put in our charter and in our strategy documents or strategy preparations for forecast for the next 5 years. And we realized the call-off contract was going to be the better one. I think from my perspective, what I was able to do for my teammates was to present transparent reasons for the trade-off. And I think that really helped.
Okay, so my next question is, what does thinking at the portfolio level really mean compared to the project or program management level?
So thinking at the portfolio level for me, I think I like to see project and program teams as teams that are naturally focused on execution. So that's scope, schedule, cost, quality, that's their world, the benefits the project or program is expected to deliver. But portfolios, on the other hand, is for choosing the right work. You decide what to start, decide what to fund, when to fund more, what to sequence later, what do you pause, and what do you stop. It's also based on value, risk, and capacity, not necessarily a timeline. I think also if you have 10 priorities, for example, maybe you have 10 projects, you consider all of them priorities, you still have to consider resources. You might have just 2 special subject matter experts that you have to use across all 10 projects, which automatically means you don't have 10 priorities. You have a bottleneck. Like in the example I gave with the bid scenario, same deadline, I had the same team, but we had to decide on which bid to go for. It's not about who wants it more. It's about what can we realistically execute well at this time. I think being able to be comfortable with trade-offs is something a portfolio manager should have.
Yeah. So portfolio manager, as you highlighted, like, it's a more strategic thinking. You need to know the strategy, organization strategy, value, weakness, vision, mission, goals, objective. The selection of the work based on the strategy or prioritization, of course, and availability resources and many other factors. Whereas project program, they talk more in the form of tactically how to get the work done, how to coordinate the work. Program managers think how to get the coordination done in such a way to get the expected benefits. Of course, they have to think, ultimately think as an alignment, but their job is to get the work done and portfolio managers to select the right work. What was the biggest mindset shift you experienced during PfMP journey?
I think the biggest shift for me was realizing being very busy does not mean you're successful. So you might have a lot of meetings, you might have a lot of milestones, you're looking at a lot of activities, a lot of progress reports to review, and everything looks alive. But PfMP helps you think harder. And while all of this is happening, you're thinking, are we actually getting the benefits we promised? Or are we just doing a lot of work? I think another shift, like I mentioned earlier, was I got comfortable with trade-offs. The disappointments when the decisions are made based on, I'll say, global best global practices, the disappointment is short-lived, especially when you know you are not making emotional decisions. So I think those two things, I got very comfortable with trade-offs, especially when you have the right structure in place to make these decisions. So instead of fighting to keep everything alive, you are more comfortable saying, okay, this is valuable, but not valuable for now. Or you can say, oh, this is running well, but the value case has changed. You can stop work and you won't feel like you have failed. And because sometimes stopping the work is the most responsible thing to do when you're trying to protect value. So
Sometimes when you learn the standard way of doing things, realizing very basic thing, like as you mentioned, being busy is not enough. Like sometimes we just think we are busy and being productive. And how can you improve your day-to-day work to be more proactive, more organized? And of course, you're using the tools and methods can help you even better, improve yourself better. Yeah. So thank you for that point. I do have audience question. Do you find that it's for PfMP Book of Knowledge, Standard for Portfolio Management, you are using balance scorecard to report or making decisions of what portfolio component to pursue based on efficiency curve?
I think this would be dependent on, I say, on the organization you work in or the space you find yourself. I think a lot of something I learned as well during this process was that just because these are best practices does not mean you have to adopt the one that is mostly adopted. So I know a lot of people would rather, and from experience, people use the balance scorecard approach to reports. But then I also realized a lot of questions in the PfMP, especially when you study, you talk about the efficient frontier or whatnot. So you might think portfolio leans towards that. But I think balance scorecard is what we use mostly in-house. But you would, from the PfMP journey, you would actually find out the efficiency curve can be one of the best possible approaches towards making such decisions. But yes, good question. It's difficult to answer, but for me, yes. But from the PfMP journey, the efficiency curve brought in new light, I would say.
How does real world portfolio experience show up in both leadership decisions and the PfMP exam?
I think from a portfolio management, or I would say real world portfolio experience point of view, you are deciding every week what to fund, what to defer, what to stop, and what to accelerate, I would say. Looking at, like I mentioned earlier, alignment to strategy, benefits, risk, capacity. What I think what the exam puts into context is scenarios, and also the exam checks to see if you are thinking like a portfolio leader, because you're not, a lot of questions are there to test whether you would actually follow best practices that have been laid down, or whether you have actually taken into account all the options provided, because a lot of times questions, all the answers, they seem really similar and they seem like the right one. And I would always say which answer is the best answer out of all of them. But so thought-provoking questions would ensure you show that you are thinking from a portfolio perspective, I say. I think another big thing it tests, and something that shows up in real life, is decision rights. Who decides what? Organizations are slow because, in my opinion, people don't work hard. Oh, sorry. It's not because people don't work hard. They are slow because I think people are not clear on who decides what. They're not clear on when escalations should happen. So delegation, thresholds, decision rights, these are very key during the exams as well. And then also risk appetite, that's also something that is important. How you clear thresholds. So really speed is not pressure, speed is clarity. And you only achieve clarity when you have the right structures in place. Well, yeah, the exam prepares you for that.
Thanks for going through the journey with me and pick some of the things which are helping you. It is always good to see. It's not only learning from the exam for the exam purpose, but also can I use this for my day-to-day portfolio management? And that should be the approach. Okay. The next question is, why do many governance models slow organizations down instead of enabling value delivery?
I think a lot of control systems that organizations put in place are usually coming from a place of lack of trust of execution discipline, or because that's why you have more approvals, you have more committees, you have more reports. It looks like you are being safe, but you're just creating a lot of delay. I think, and all of this will not show up in one line item. It will show up, it will start showing up in windows being missed, costs being increased, clients being frustrated. So I think one easy test for us is we ensure every governance meeting ends with a decision. So something like, oh, we'll take it offline, or another memo should be submitted. Then we feel that's theater, and I'm speaking from our own organization here. So if your governance structures are well put in place, your decisions will happen cleanly and quickly. More approval processes, more committees and quotes, and all of this would only choke the portfolio. And this is how I say it. I feel you can do in less committees if you have better structure and you ensure decision rights are clear and decisions are made per time, especially when you have set your communication calendars and you know exactly when these meetings will happen. You can prepare for them properly. So yeah, that's how I see this. I feel organizations can be quicker with lesser control systems, but better decision rights.
How can portfolio leaders make tough prioritization and trade-off decisions when resources are constrained?
Okay, so I mentioned earlier, a lot of, I would say, portfolio leaders or those responsible for managing portfolios, they do not look inward as well as they should. Constraints of resources are normal. A lot of people pretend they are not there and they just assume you could. When the time comes, the capacity will be sourced. The only way I've seen this work, and from personal experience, is by having a transparent model. Transparent in the sense that you have, I'll say, specific things that you use in comparing initiatives. The exam would also prepare you or give you a hint a bit. So specifically strategic alignment, like I mentioned earlier, what are the expected benefits? What's our risk exposure compared to our risk appetite? And then we look at the urgency. What is, especially if it's a new initiative, is there a risk not going to market first? Things like that. And then resource demand. Then we look at the real world filter, which is capacity. If we cannot staff it properly now, then it means it doesn't have to start now. A lot of portfolios would have half-done components, and this is as a result of you starting work that you did not properly analyze your capacity for. Again, back to the example I gave earlier, we had 2 bids, same deadline, same team. We could have pushed both. We could have worked tight deadlines, but then we would likely weaken both submissions, and then we lose both opportunities. So sometimes the smartest move is not necessarily doing everything that comes to you. It's knowing when to pick one and doing it properly, knowing when to rebalance. Priorities and constraints would always change. So your portfolio should always move. It should never be constant. That's my take.
We need to have some constraints. We have constraints, but we have to know about them. And the decisions are made based on that. And rightly, your 2 bids, and you could have tried, or guys that put both best effort, day, night, and quality may be compromised, and you end up losing both of them. And let's focus only one out of 2, and let's put the best and come out the most effective way of presenting. Then people are more clear because the source are not constraints. You have focused vision. But we have to win at least one of them. Find out which one, and of course, bid for that. Okay. All right. My next question is, and guys, you also have to pay attention to the PDU code. I am sharing the PDU code as well. My next question is, what is the most common sign of value leakage at the portfolio level? And how can leaders prevent them?
I think one thing I've learned, it's a very good question, because one thing I've learned is that you can spot value leakage early. And I think one easy way to do that is when you audit the data, because dishonest data is the biggest risk to value, in the sense that when your data doesn't match reality, on paper everything looks fine, but in reality the business is feeling pain, your clients are unhappy, you're firefighting in operations, your delays are more repetitive, you have costs creeping in, but then your reports show that you're progressing. And of course, it shows that you are making the wrong decisions, and it shows that you're funding the wrong work. So I'll say, okay, let me give a practical example for this. There's a facility we run, we provide facility management services to the client in that facility, and we have groceries that we have to procure every month or so. But then we always had stockouts. On paper and the reports, the client wasn't really complaining, but we could see that there was always stockouts. Went to the vendor, tried to negotiate better conditions for them, but still this persisted. This became apparent that we had to make a decision. So we had 2 options. First option, stay with the existing vendor, was cheap, but then unreliability and disruptions. Or option 2, is a third-party vendor that of course will have a markup included, but much more reliable. They can hold stock, so no stockouts. The result, happier clients, and we stopped firefighting. So we chose reliability. That was the trade-off. Of course, it costs more, but the only way for us to have prevented this from becoming, I'll say, damage on our reputation was by ensuring we made the best decision for the organization. It wasn't really about the cost. Like I said, it was about reliability and ensuring stock availability. So yeah, tight data discipline, I'll say, is a way to avoid value leakage. Ensuring your metrics are clearly defined. Also, yes, making sure you have one source of truth. That's all. I think that's one key thing about portfolio management. One source of truth. Your data should be going into your PMIS. So maybe in this case, portfolio management information system, so that all decisions are made across the entire portfolio on or from one source of truth. Make sure your benefit owners are defined as well. Yeah, I think these are ways to avoid value leakage. Well, a good way to find out is from data.
Let me bring the audience question here. How has achieving PfMP changed the way you influence strategy and executive conversations?
So I think for me, it's a bit different because, like I said earlier, I had already been a practicing portfolio manager before I got the certification. So but then before the certification, trade-offs always weighed me down. I would always overthink them. I would always consider a lot of criteria that I typically shouldn't. Then I think what has changed for me is instead of I think this is this, I can easily say, oh, here's the value, here's the risk, here's the capacity reality of to deliver on this, and here are the trade-offs, because everything cannot be funded. There has to be a no for a yes in portfolio management. If you're funding everything, then you are definitely doing something wrong. But then my mindset has also been reinforced. So when I'm in certain rooms, regardless of how urgent things might seem or things are being thrown at me, because as a portfolio manager, there will always be competition for resources. So now I'm more comfortable in saying, oh, we can do this, but it sounds very exciting, but what do we delay or stop to make it possible? I think that one question always changes the conversation in the room. It turns emotions to trade-offs, and over time, people trust the process more because the decision feels consistent. And that's what I'll say about that.
All right, good, thank you. All right, my next question to you, again, audience question. Okay. How are you able to navigate your career from marketing to portfolio management in oil and gas industry?
Okay, I believe this person probably went through my LinkedIn profile. So this is obviously someone who knows my career in some sense.
I didn't know.
I just saw the but marketing. I was in sales, which was interesting because I tell people I get thrown into the deep end in my career. And that's because for sales and marketing, for example, I was made head of sales and marketing for an FMCG company that was focused on alcoholic beverages, and they wanted to break into the wine market. They had a few new wines that they wanted to introduce to the market, and I was basically handed over the portfolio. I think sales and marketing helped me because I had no marketing experience before that. But then when you realize that, and this is after the fact, of course, when you realize that certain skills that you acquired during those processes can be applied to how you present bids, how you put together business cases, investment decisions, how you prioritize as well, governance. And then I think my knowledge of the market as well helped me, for lack of a better term, thrive in other sectors, because FMCG is very active. You have a lot of, that's why it's called fast moving consumer goods. So you have a lot of moving parts. But yes, I think it prepared me for the oil and gas sector. But then in the oil and gas sector, I started as a business development.
How do I get accredited? So look, wherever you are, doesn't matter. It's about most programs. My programs are virtual, so you can join from anywhere in the world. So I will show you a few of these programs. I do live online bootcamp, multi programs, and in-person programs. And some of the upcoming programs you can see, you can take a screenshot if you want. PfMP online bootcamp, PfMP mentoring program, or PMOCP. If you're, I see a lot of people preparing for PMOCP, so you may like to think about. And the good news is, I have a coupon code. This will save you 10% on the amount, the published amount. So if you want to take a screenshot of this, take this, and you will save 10%. If you are talking $15.99, you will save around $160. All right. So with this, thank you very much. Thank you, Debbie, for your contribution. Appreciate your contribution. And thanks, guys, for joining and asking your question. With this, I'd like to say bye now and good luck and love you guys. So see you soon. Take care. Good luck.